everyone, I'm Larissa Russell of Creative You, and I'm your host of the Creative Soul Healing Podcast. Here's where we talk about the connection between creativity and healing by interviewing amazing creatives, spectacular healers, and inspiring people who have used creativity in their healing. What does it mean to be creative? What is creativity? You don't have to write a best-selling book or paint a masterpiece or even play in a rock band. Creativity is in everything that we do, in the ways we think, in the way we run a business. In our everyday lives, we are creative all the time. Let's talk about how we are creative and how creativity helps us heal mentally, physically, and emotionally, right now on the Creative Soul Healing Podcast. Hi everyone, Larissa Russell of Creative You Healing, and welcome to the Creative Soul Healing Podcast. Today I have with me Amanda Anderson. Amanda was part of our second annual Loving, Healing, Creating Summit we ran in February and shared with us a Creating Affirmation Card workshop. You can still get access to the summit at www.creativeyouhealing.com. So over the last 4 years, Amanda has worked hard at perfecting and improving her art techniques, her self-care routine, and how to use art to improve her mental health. In 2016, Amanda was admitted to hospital on a suicide watch because she was in the depths of a nasty postpartum depression. While admitted, she found a natural love and talent for art, and that was the first time she realized she could use art to help herself heal. Since then, she has never stopped painting and drawing. In August 2020, she became a therapeutic art life coach, and she is currently completing her bachelor's degree in fine art education, with a plan to get her master's in art therapy to become a licensed art therapist. Amanda has been fortunate to build a business out of her home, currently just outside of Boise, Idaho. Due to the fact that her husband is in the military, she gets to take her art, her 4 kids, and her business all around the world. Plus, she gets to inspire and teach thousands of budding artists how to use art to navigate overwhelming emotions and hard times. Amanda also hosts her very own podcast, The Safely Spoken Podcast. It's a safe space to talk about real life and real emotions. Welcome, Amanda.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you. As I was reading your bio, I'm like, wow, we've done a few of the same things. And it was my depression that put me on this path as well. And so, talking to other people who have, their mental health has been a big proponent for, moving forward in their life and how important creativity is. And that's exactly why I do this podcast, Healing with Creativity. So can you share a little more of your story and the path that's brought you here?
Yeah. So, I mean, your lovely intro there makes me sound like I've got myself all put together. But, on a daily, I feel like, 4 years ago, when I was just kind of at my lowest lows with depression and specifically postpartum, it was just like so dark and so draining. And I kept finding myself like locked in a closet, just coloring in a coloring book. And those, those anti-stress or whatever coloring books, the anti-anxiety coloring books are beautiful in their own way, but I felt like I needed more, like I needed more purpose to my art. And so I started creating my own stuff. And that's when I feel like it started to flourish a little bit more and just creating something that meant more to me than coloring in a coloring book. You know what I mean? And so anyways, now I've really started to dive into art as a form of self-expression, not just to create pretty paintings, but self-expression. And there's sometimes that I'll paint some things. I'm currently working right now on a series. She's my break-free girl is what I call her. But the first one that I did, my mom was like, that's really dark. But then other people that get it, that see it, that understand it, they're like, oh, that is so beautiful. Like I resonate with that. But so I think you just have to understand like everybody interprets art different, which is fun. But I think that's self-expression for art, I think is really important. And that's what I like to do now. And I teach art too. We teach watercolor and art journaling kind of as a self-care practice in our membership.
Yeah. And it's so true, that expression. And I know when I'm sharing a project or something like that, it's about that process as opposed to the finished project, right? Mm-hmm. Painting for or creating art for a finished project is great too, but I think it's so healing to be able to express and go through that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So what does healing with creativity then mean to you?
So I'm in the process right now. I haven't really dove into it, but I'm in the process right now of getting my bachelor's in um, fine art education, but then also with a minor in psychology. And it's funny, as I dive into my psychology classes, I'm learning so much about how the brain works. And then
Mm,
to pair that with art and connect, like how art is so like soothing and calming. I think when we can go into art with zero expectations of what the finished result is, that's when the magic starts to happen. And I think just the process of doing it. And we also do some therapeutic art lessons in our membership where you specifically are tackling something. One of our most recent lessons, we basically wrote out all of the things that were holding us back. And it was really like emotional to like have it all on paper, and to like put that time into like thinking of all the things that are holding you back. But then we covered all of that with black paint so you can't see it anymore. And then we built on it to provide like show that we're moving forward. And that was the past, but we're moving forward and we're gonna be able to break free from all of those things that were holding us back. And so we do lessons like that in our membership, and it's really fun because we get to connect with other women in ways like it's a very vulnerable, when the people share about it, it's a vulnerable thing, but we also have a lot of fun while we do it too. And so I think being able to connect with others through art is a big part of the healing process too, to share your experience and connect with other people.
Yeah, I think so too. And having those memberships or groups that you can do that in, I think is so important. And that's one of the great things about the internet, right? Because you can be anywhere and have that connection to people. So yeah, that's really great. So then, what inspires you in the work that you do?
Honestly, I think it's my depression from the past, and even sometimes I have bouts of current depression right now. I find a lot of piece of the growth in the process out of that depression. You know what I mean? Like I can create artwork now about the depression because I'm out of it and I can look back on it and see, you know what I mean? It's a different perspective. I think had I created art like I'm creating now while I was in it, it would be, I wish they could see my art like on the podcast. I wish they could just like I could show it because it's just fun to be able to see the piece that comes with this artwork that I'm doing now, and but still know that there was a previous darkness, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wish I could like show it, but I have bits of, there's a brightness to one end and then darkness to another end, and there's a peace, there's a healing part of it. I just really love.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts then? This is something that comes up a lot for creatives and healers, but about monetizing, healing or creative works. What are
You know,
your thoughts?
I was thinking about this the other day. I recently read a book that I just absolutely love. It's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes.
And it's such a good book. It's such a good book. And in there, she says, like, you specifically, what is it? She says, when people try to like write a self-help book to help people, it's like cringeworthy. But when you write a self-help book through an experience that you went through, that means something to you, and you're just sharing it with someone else, it's more authentic. I think the same goes for art, right? Like if you're going to start a business to make money, like, you know what I mean? But there's no connection to the art, then there's no connection. It's not going to be authentic. But if you have something that you're passionate about and you pour all of your love and your soul into it and you share it, and then all of a sudden there becomes this market for what you're doing, then get it. You know what I mean? I feel like we need in our society now more creative voices, more people that are passionate about what they do. And if you have something like that and there's a market for it, do your thing. You know what I mean? That's how my business was born, because I was passionate about it. It was exciting to me. I loved doing it. I would do it even if people weren't paying me to do it. But so many people asked me, I want a copy of that. Will you do an original painting for me? How do you do this? Can you teach me? So all of those things were things that built my business. And I don't think it would have ever started if I wouldn't have created something that meant something to me.
Yeah, I think that's so important for us to remember. is that we are in service to others, right? We're here to help. And when we're not, that you're absolutely right, that authenticity is lost. Yeah, for sure. So what is the creative healing modality you use the most for yourself?
I love watercolor. I don't know if that's really the the question you're asking, but I can express myself very well with watercolor. However, I have just recently started dabbling in mixed media with the inspiration from my business partner Jess. She was part of the summit as well,
Mm-hmm.
and anyways, she has just been so fantastic in encouraging me to use other mediums and other things. And the process, when you use different mediums, I think what you get out of them emotionally and spiritually, I think is totally different. Um, like, I feel like with mixed media, it's okay if I get messy and I put a lot of like oomph into it. Whereas with watercolor, I like to be a little bit more soft and a little, you know what I mean? So I think it depends on my mood and what I'm
Yeah.
doing. But that's kind of what I like to do for as far as when I sit down to paint and the mood I'm in, that's what determines what mediums I use.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really important. You have what you're comfortable with, so you can express in that way. But when you sort of step out of your comfort zone as well, you can express in new ways, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So starting with the art journal. And so what are you most proud of in your life?
I would say my family and the life that we've built. Like, my husband's in the military and we made that decision to join together. And that was a big deal. But because of being in the military and, moving around and doing different things, we have had the wonderful experience of doing so many different things. Like, I got to work on my schooling pretty much for free. I haven't had to worry about any of that just because I qualify for scholarships and like all the different things. And then the people we've met and the places we've moved, the kids we've had, it's beautiful. And I don't think I would be right now creating art if we didn't have this stability from,
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like, the military's been a big blessing for us. But yeah, I think my family and just the life we've built and the things we do on our day to day that kind of just make up little bits. It's our story.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So if you could change one aspect of our society through your work, what would it be?
Awareness on mental health, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm going to cry. 100%. There's this awful stigma, right? That like people don't want to be around people that are depressed, or people, if you're bipolar, that's me, that you're crazy, or that, you know what I mean? There's like these awful things that people just don't get it. They don't understand. People don't talk about it. And because of that, people are scared to talk about it. And I've I've been open about my story. I feel like if you follow me, you know my story. Um, and I'm not afraid to share it. And I've had so many people just thank me for, like, I appreciate you sharing your story, because now I know that someone else is going through or has gone through what I'm experiencing.
Mhm.
And I think if we can build more connections and do those things, and hey, if we're using art to do that, you know what I mean? I feel like that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I do healing with creativity, is because of my own mental health issues and what I've gone through in the past and how it helped me. So sharing that with other people, and I totally understand that with the stories that you hear from others and sharing your story, I think it's so important because you're right, that stigma that's attached to it, and people not knowing what to say or what to do, or thinking you're lazy, or you just don't want to do it. And it's like, no, it's completely different than that. It's
Yeah.
completely different than that. And,
Yeah.
and, and so having, other people who are struggling with the same things, then be able to connect and go, okay, you get me, because, you've done the same, you've been through the same. Yeah. I think that's so important. Absolutely. So have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome in your work? And if so,
Oh,
how,
yes. Sorry, I got you. I was like shouting from the mountaintop with that one. Yes, I have. Sorry, finish your sentence.
I love that, because I was going to say, how have you gotten over it? But or how do you work through it? Maybe that's it. How do you work through it?
So it's funny because I teach art, right? But I've only been painting for a few years, so I still have so much to learn. And so sometimes I get this, like, especially when people join our group, that like we have a free art club that is open to anybody. And so when people join that and their skill level is like, oh, I'm like, okay, I don't know if you're going to learn anything from me. But then I realized that as a community of artists, we all learn from each other. I learn from our members, they learn from me, we learn from each other. And it's this beautiful circle of like sharing what we know and taking things in and growing as artists together. And I try to remember that when someone that comes in with really impeccable detail in their work, I try to remember that when I get a little envious. I wish my stuff was there. But then I also remember that I don't enjoy that style, because I'm like, oh, your stuff looks so realistic. But then anytime I try to sit down and paint something realistic, I get so much anxiety, because I don't want my stuff to look 100% realistic. I have more of like a illustrated style. Like people tell me I should do children's books, stuff like that. But anyways, it's just one of those things that we have to remember, that we all learn and grow together, and you just have to do what your style is as well as you can. You know what I mean? And if you can just take what you have and you share that with others, someone is going to love it and feel it and resonate with it. And that's all we can do. And we're just going to keep growing together. And we're all at our own little journey. It's part of the journey.
It is part of the journey. And we're not here to please everybody, right? We just have to please ourselves, and the people that are meant to be there will be there. So yeah, and then you learn and share from each other. I love that. Yeah. So do you have an inspirational quote that you live by?
I am worth the effort.
I love that.
I am worth the effort to get out of bed when I don't want to. I am worth the effort to get dressed and shower when I don't want to. I am worth the effort to finish my degree when I don't want to. And I'm worth the effort to sit down and paint even if I don't want to. Like anything. I'm just worth the effort to do it. Like, it's worth the time, it's worth the effort, and I am worth the effort.
Yeah. That just really resonated with me. I love that. I am worth the effort. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I can make like a beautiful piece of art around that. I really should.
You really should.
Affirmation card, but I want it bigger, like on my wall somewhere.
I love that. So is there anything else you'd like to share that maybe you haven't had a chance to with our listeners?
I think the one thing I think is important to remember is artwork doesn't always have to be pretty, and it doesn't have to be emotional. Sometimes it's just messy because it's fun. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to put our heart and soul into everything. Sometimes all you got to do is sit down with a brayer and some acrylic paint and just smash it just because you need to, and or even just because it sounds fun. It's like when you doodle for no reason. Like when you sit down to paint, I don't think that there needs to be a pressure to create something as a masterpiece every single time, because sometimes our best stuff comes from when we have no pressure on us to create anything. And so I think it's just part of the journey, and part of everybody has their own artistic path that they take. And yeah, I just think part of creative healing is not putting expectations.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And I think the expectations come from our ideas of what art is, right? Yeah. And if we just allow ourselves to be creative and just allow ourselves to be expressive, I think that's more important than actual art.
Yeah.
Which has its place. Yeah. I wouldn't want to live life without art, but it has its place. But I think creating and expressing is just so healing.
Yeah. And there's times too that where, since I do run an art business, that I feel like everything I do is for the business and not for me. And so I have to like bring it back. And like, there's been many times where I'm like, I'm not even turning the camera on. I'm not going to record this because I'm doing this for me. And then I create something really freaking cool and I wish I had it on camera. And so I am, anyways, I just think that there's a process. And if we can sit down and just not put any expectations and just do more work that makes like lights our soul on fire with no expectation, I think that's where the magic comes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. To our listeners, we will see you again next week. And in the meantime, I wish for you amazingly creative days. Are you a daily journaler? Do you want more creativity in your day? We have 2 great creativity journals to start your day with. One for people who already have a journaling practice, and one for people who are new to journaling. Both are an amazing way to start your day. Both make the perfect gift for a person in your life. Check out Have an Amazingly Creative Day and How Do I Have an Amazingly Creative Day? Both currently available on Amazon. Click the link below to purchase yours now.